We're talking about magic today. I have a story time first, okay? This is relevant, I promise. I was driving home last night and I saw something moving really fast through the sky and I was like, oh my god, it's a plane. Is that a plane? But then I was like, it's too fast for a plane. It's way too fast. It must be a shooting star. But it was bigger than a shooting star. And then it turned like bright green. I think it was like a meteorite. Is that what it's called when they come to Earth? A meteorite. And it turned like really bright green and then disappeared into the hills on the horizon. Anyway, I feel blessed. I feel blessed and magical myself. And ready for magic and Hytale. This is a really, really interesting topic for me personally. I love magic. I love magic systems. It's some of my favorite things in any piece of media, movies or shows, books, games, whatever the case. I adore it. And Hytale's magic system has a lot left to be delivered. It has a lot of fleshing out to do. So much. You would do this to me right now. It's been 1 minute. It's been 1 minute, and you would do this to me on my birthday of all days. Thank you. That was delicious tea. That was delicious tea. I want my glasses. Oh my god. If I... It's so crooked. If I put my glasses on, do I look more believable? Like, if I said something crazy, if I was like, this is actually a game about alien frogs and their interpersonal lives, would you believe me now? If I said it looking like this? Okay, I've assembled a bunch of stuff, as I usually do. Like I said, before I got really, really distracted, magic in the game, super, super limited right now. Super limited, and they said that they're going to flesh stuff out, and they said that a lot of stuff that they have right now is basically just testing. It's just testing stuff. But we're going to cover what we have right now, because we do have enough, I think, to at least get cracking on a theory. We have a statue of our main deities right here. We got Gaia, we got Varen. Super quick crash course for anybody who somehow doesn't know Gaia, primary deity of Orbis. Not everybody worships her, but her magic is still throughout the world, and she seems to have the avatar role of Orbis, similar to how the players are avatars, where she can kind of shape the world if she were not in some sort of coma. And then we've got Varen, big baddie, and presumably from the Void, which we talked about the Void a little bit last week if you want to go check that video, but it seems as though they do come from another world in the Hytale Alterverse. And then Gaia, you can see on her braids, on her hair, she has a symbol for each of the 5 elements that she wields. We got earth, lightning, fire, water, wind. That's 5. Earth, water, fire, lightning, wind. I got it. I did good. So we've got a few of these laid out here because they do kind of line up very nicely, the way this all fits together in the game. And then I did put a few reanimated animals over here. I didn't bother putting in every type of zombie and skeleton and so forth because I just kind of put them over the broader label of undead, but I did drop these guys in here just to show that the animals get affected by this too. There's only a handful of undead creatures, undead animals in the game at this moment in time. Wouldn't be surprised if that list grows in the future. They're a little freaky, especially the cow. I really don't like the patchwork cow. He makes me deeply uncomfortable. But they have the same glowing blue eyes. There's a theory that's gone around for the skeletons and their blue eyes. Somebody has linked it to... So, if you didn't know, each of the different colors of these elements... What am I saying? Each of these different colors links to a different element, right? So this is like water. The light blue over here is wind. We got the red for fire. We got the green for earth, yellow for lightning, so on and so forth, right? Somebody has linked their blue eyes to wind being the color of freedom, as in like freedom from death, right? Because wind is supposed to represent freedom for the Farens, like their freedom from the Scarix. Interesting theory, freedom from death. We can see in here, there's references both in the Alchemist workbench and in the Arcanist workbench to the people of Orbis trying to grasp at power. Like, had they mastered arcane arts sooner, perhaps they would have not been so easily swayed, presumably by Varen and the Void. Or the Alchemist workbench, where it says they sought the secrets to eternal life, and some might say they achieved that grand goal, though perhaps not in the form that they imagined. It's very interesting. And then there's also the theory that now that Gaia is asleep or comatose, that now her magic is kind of wild and uncontrolled, and that means that these people cannot rest, or it's keeping them alive kind of like accidentally. All interesting theories, although I am the biggest fan of the theory of them doing it to themselves, particularly because the hubris of the ancient humans in the world is referenced a couple times in the game. And I really like the idea that they pursued arcane arts and eternal life, and they turned themselves into this, and now they are stuck as nasty old skeletons forever. I think that's fun. I think that gives a little bit more of a fun dynamic into the story when it's something that they caused for themselves. Maybe that also had an effect on the rest of the world in Gaia's imprisonment too. Don't know. It's too early to know in the game's development, but it's interesting to think about. So anyways, I've organized these based on element and lined them all up accordingly. So naturally we're starting with Earth because this is where you start in the game. You start in the zone for Earth. These are, they're called elements of magic circles, I believe. We got the pillars for the magic circles and then the middles. And we can see these pedestals that have these crystals atop them. When I first saw these, like before the game came out, I thought these were blocks that were all like a block together, but it's just a table with crystals hovering on top of it. Obviously, we do have the work in progress sign, so maybe that will be updated. Maybe that will change over time. But basically, for each of these elements, we have a magic circle, we have a golem, and we have a spirit. So there's these elemental spirits. I don't know if every single one of them is discoverable in the game. These guys are. You can sometimes find them down in well, human ruins that are beneath the surface. So they're just like hanging out down there at the bottom of the world. Very, very cool the way that they've taken an approach in the game's development to having these magic elements just be part of the world, right? The magic is imbued in the world, and so it's imbued in the creatures of the world as well. I'm going to come out of third person here so we can see these guys close up. They're all sprinting because I went out of render distance, and I only took the time to fix a few of them because these guys make so much noise when they're sprinting, I can't stand it. But yeah, we have people here who are using basically earth magic is how I tried to delineate it. These guys, there's versions of them that hold a little staff that looks like this too, a little Quebec staff. And there's a very interesting thing that happens when you look at all of these cultures all lined up in a row, where you get many different cultures that all have a shaman in them. So we get that with the Quebecs, and we have that even with the undead right here as well. We have that with the Trork. We have a Trork shaman over here. We have that with the Outlanders. They have their priests and sorcerers. We got an ice mage here for the undead people. We have the alchemist from the Zone 4 people. We've got another sort of mage here for the sand people. We have, I think it's called a windwalker, which is their version of a shaman for the Farrens. And then we have a void wizard over here as well. This is something that X Spree pointed out, and I'll link his channel in the description because he's dipped his toes into lore now as well, and you should definitely check it out. But he pointed out that a lot of these civilizations have similar, I guess hierarchies would be the word. They got similar positions in their culture that relate to magic, and specifically to harnessing magic. And they each seem to have different focuses that really do align with their individual culture. All right, so like obviously the Quebecs have this very gentle earth magic-y approach. And then it gets a little bit more violent as you go on to like, oh, your head's backwards. That's fine. As you go on to the fire people, for example, and their alchemy and spell books. The other interesting thing is that the golems, they each have one of these crystals here. So this is emerald. This is not the same as these luminous crystals. These are an ore, a gemstone. And they all have the same tooltip. They read, the hearts of mighty golems are often formed of these gemstones. Arcanists once sought the aid of more industrial diggers to locate rich pockets deep underground. Really interesting stuff here. So first of all, the golems were made by somebody. These golems are guarding portals that lead to the Forgotten Temple, so I don't think it's a stretch to imagine that they were created by people who worshipped Gaia and wanted to protect her regardless of what zone they're in, as all these temples used to be to worship Gaia. Even the temple entrances that you find in Orbis have her statues, or have places where her statues were at one point in time removed from, and yet still the golem stands down there guarding that location. We talked about this in a previous video as well. There's references in the game to what's called the Knights of the Broken Order, both in the soundtrack and in the game. I think it's very easy to imagine that some of them were trying to construct these golems, or did construct these golems. The interesting thing here, though, is more industrial diggers. And I wonder what that's a reference to. It could be the Fair and Burrowers. They have a group of people that are designed to burrow. There are the goblins. I wonder if you could instruct goblins to do things like that. Or maybe there's something else entirely that we haven't even touched. I don't know. But regardless, they had some amount of help in getting these gems to create their golems. Moving on to the fire people, same sort of layout. These are the fire mage pillars. What are they called? Magic pillars that go around this sort of inner circle thing, both with the crystals and the work in progress sign again. So eventually these will probably be updated. We once again have the spirit here, but we also have two different types of golems for the fire people. We have this one that guards the portal just like the earth golem does, and then we have the fire steel golem that, if you've been around the bottoms of the world, you know it spawns down there, and also spawns in the underground forests in Zone 4. And then I put the living spark next to it because I believe it was Damie pointed out to me when we were playing this game for one of the first times, that these very much look like little babies of these guys. Like, they've got the same metallic colors on the sides. It's just these guys have a little bit of green fire in them. It's very interesting. And these guys obviously do not, but they do look similar for sure. There is also some design similarities between all of these. I threw this guy in over here as well. He's not a golem, but he just has somewhat of a similar design in terms of the metal that's being held up by flame inside. And this one is yellow and red flame, and this one is blue flame, which, if you're paying attention, looks just like the flame that the little Grim Reapers in Zone 5 emit. What are they called? Wraiths? Are those the Wraiths? I think they are. They're the Wraiths. They have the same flame color inside of them, but they also look animated by some sort of magic. They have very similar design, particularly here around the waist. We get that triangle shape, which also occurs there, and it occurs here, and it occurs here. It just gives the impression that all of these things were made. They're a little bit different, right? These are powered by their crystals. These ones are powered by fire, I guess. Just different colors of fire. Don't know who made them or how, but it is fascinating. Then we have our Trorks here. Interesting to note that the Trorks seem to be opposed to the Quebecs, who are very strong worshippers of Gaia, and yet they're still using magic of Gaia's world. We got a Torque staff right here, which looses fire. They used fire crystals, which is why I put them in the fire section and not the earth section. I know that they spawn in Zone 1 and a little bit in Zone 3, but they've got these fire crystal staffs. Most of the staffs in the game produce this magic right here. It's just this normal green blast. I assume that this is going to be updated later on. Even people who have books often produce that same magic. We got a couple of them over here. Sand guy with a book? Oh, you're way over here. He's that guy right there. Same magic as this. But the Trorks do have this fire instead. They've got a fire blast. We'll explore some of the different magics as we encounter them throughout this. But yeah, we got that. And then their rock, their gemstone of choice, I would assume for the golem, is the ruby here, which has the same... Oops. That's not what I meant to do. It has the same description as the other gemstones. Used for the golems, dug out by industrial diggers. And then I threw in these dogs here as well, particularly this one, just because it's always interesting to me how the magic of different regions, different zones in the game gets imbued into the creatures. It's not just present in the environment, it's present in the creatures themselves, which is really, really cool. And then, of course, we got this guy with the flame book. We got a few books throughout the game. This is the other thing that really compels me towards the whole, the humans did their, you know, undead situation to themselves, because they're the ones that would have made these grimoires, right? I know it's a test magic system and that it's probably going to change and that it's just kind of testing mechanics and if it works well and how to balance it and all that sort of stuff, but the fact remains that it's coming from a grimoire, and the grimoires come from the undead people. And the grimoires have the ability to then resurrect more undead people. Interesting to think about. Then we got Zone 3, which is water, and ice, both of which are made, out of water. We got the same sort of situation here. We get these pillars that have the crystals inside of them, and we get the middle circle. Also, we got a little dragons in there. Little dragons, like the ice dragon that we have right over here, I suppose, a depiction of it. But the crystals, like I said, seem to be very deeply connected to the magic system in the game. So every single one of these magic circles has these crystals present that correspond with whatever element they come from, right? So we got the green for earth, we have the red for fire, we have the blue for water and ice. And then we have the same sort of situation with the golem here. Very similar design to the other ones. And I believe it's a sapphire. Yep, a sapphire. For the golem in this zone as well. And then I've put the Outlanders here as well. We're going to touch on them a little bit at the end, because they got a little bit of a different magic situation. And then we got this Frost Staff here. This is one of the few other staffs that produce a different magical effect, which is this burst of ice. I really, really enjoy this. Magic does seem to be something that is possessible in the game, as we have mana potions that presumably would have been able to be developed by these humans when they were still alive. Or maybe even now that they're undead as well, but technology at least. Technology that was developed while they were still alive to produce these mana potions. I believe you can even see one of them on the workbench if you put it down. Is that mana there to the side? It really looks like it, I think. Let's look at the other potions real quick, because now I'm curious. Where are the other potions? Here we go. It looks like mana. It really does. Maybe it's energy? Energy's a little brighter, though. My guess would be mana. Interesting, though. Very interesting. Oops. Let me break you. Perfect, perfect. Then, this one also spawns inside of Zone 4. I was just going through all the circles. This is a little bit of a tough one to represent because this is poison. This is a poison magic circle. So we get these pillars that would surround it, and then we have this at the center. And you can see on the pillars, we get this poisoned volcanic rock on them as well, which I'm a little confused why it isn't on the center too, and instead it's this one. It's just the cracked volcanic rock. I feel like it should also be poison. But we have literal streams of poison falling down from it, and then we have earth crystals in the middle. A little bit odd, but I plopped an earth crystal here as well. And then obviously we know that this was harnessed by the people in Zone 4, because we can see the alchemists carrying around bottles of poison on their person. And we can find stuff like this in their buildings too, inside of Zone 4. Moving on, we get the sand magic circle. We get these light blue crystals that are floating within these beautiful pillar designs. And then we have the center of the circle once again, work in progress, and our golem with, again, very similar overall design, where you can see the crystals poking out of him, and then presumably this would be the gem heart that would be used for that golem, Zephyr. And then we have the Farron Windwalker. They can produce wind out of their staves here. I don't think we can do that ourselves when we hold the bone staff. I don't think it works like that. It just produces that green thing. But they can make little whirlwinds. They can make little miniature tornadoes. So they clearly have a very close connection to this element. You can see it even on their little bone mask there at the top. And then we've got this guy. I don't think that produces any unique magic either. I think that's just the normal green. Oh, we can't even use it. We can't even use it ourselves. We do have these other extra couple of staves here, We got this one with the red crystals that also produces fire. And then this one, I don't think does... No, it does just the green one, but it has fire that's around it. A little fire animation that's really, really cool to see. And then, like I said, the rest of these, it's all just regular old green magic. There are, of course, a few weapons and items in the game that have magic imbued into them, like the Flame Longsword, and I would assume that as development on the game progresses, you'll get more weapons like that that have specific elements imbued into them, depending on the zone that you're in and the people that would have constructed them. But moving past this point, we get a little bit less. So this is what we have for Zone 5, Zone of Lightning. We did a video on this a while ago. If you haven't seen it and you want to check it out, feel free to. But we have a golem for it, and we have a spirit for it. The golem clearly has these crystals sticking out of it, and then has, I guessed topaz? I don't know. It's impossible to tell. We haven't been in this zone before. It doesn't exist yet, and so we don't know what actually spawns there. But I was just kind of color matching, and that was the closest that I could find. So that was my best guess. Then we have the void. These guys do spawn in other areas of the world. Obviously, this guy spawns in the Howling Sands, but they are void colors. They're using all this, you know, purple void stuff. He's got that purple staff. What is it called in here? The wizard staff, because he is the wizard. Though I believe it also just produces that green blast. We need some cool void magic from this guy, because this is an epic design. And then we have the Void Guardian Golem. This is a little bit of a tricky one. I put this crystal here, this void stone, because I would assume if a golem was made, you know, a void golem was made, it would use void stone, right? I mean, it's the same color as the purple crystal that's used in void magic in the game. But then I get the impression that this guy was corrupted. Because you can see this void blade going into him and all this corrupted stuff arcing through him, and it seems like he didn't start out that way. And so I don't believe that that would actually be how he was made. Maybe he was made with one of these things over here. Bright diamond, since he is white and the diamond is white. I have no idea. I truly have no idea. But we do have these last couple that don't have an association over here. We don't have, I think, a complete rainbow of colors here. Like, this is a red crystal. It looks orange, but it is called red. But we don't have an orange crystal. Right, they haven't fleshed out even just those 6 colors. And yet we do have a pink one. I don't know what pink would be associated with. I don't know if it gets a specific element to itself, because the crystals clearly have an association with magic, given that they are in all of these staves that produce magic, and they're in the things that are literally called magic circles in the game files. But it doesn't have an association. And then we have white, which I think lines up with the diamond here. I couldn't find another gemstone for pink to line up with, but these do seem to match up quite nicely, which seems to be the case with these other ones too. Seems to be intentional to me that they each have a color that they coordinate with. So, we've seen a bunch of different applications of magic in the game. The creation of the golems, we have the arcanist and alchemist tables and those systems, we have the staves with their crystals in them, and the undead people, and then this imbuing of elemental energy into different aspects of each zone. There is, we'll briefly cover a couple more applications, particularly for this crystal right here. This is going to be old stuff if you've seen the other videos that I've done, but if you haven't seen them, we're going to dive into this just a little bit, particularly for these guys, for the Outlanders. So over here, I have a bunch of Outlander buildings all spawned in. This is pretty much every Outlander structure that you get inside of the game. And they have both above ground and underground these circles where they have water. These are not normally in here. Those are just, I made them for a thumbnail. But underneath their water, they have these purple crystals. And we know that they do this with the intention of creating void water that they can use in their rituals and in their alchemy. And we get a similar thing underground when we hit big chambers like this inside of their crypts. We can also see that they're powered by the same crystals that seem to have an association with the void. So it's interesting that those crystals seem to contain that power, even though they're in what seems to be Gaia's world, or at least an echo of Gaia's world. But maybe that is part of the whole void invasion and the corruption that that entails. We can find, I believe, a couple places where this happens in Zone 4 as well. Oh, here's one of our alchemy workshops. Interesting that we can see green fire in here too, just like in the Living Spark. And then obviously there's plants and stuff like this that also seem to have magic imbued in them because they're used in alchemy. I'm not going to cover all of that. There's a lot of plants in the game that... Interesting generation here. Now that I'm messing with world generation, I actually... I've accidentally produced things like this myself too. Kind of comforting to know that it's in the base game as well, and that they also have had that same mistake. Anyways, we do have the purple crystals here as well, void crystals, in a very similar situation where they're illuminating water, even in Zone 4. And we talked about how those two cultures may have been linked at some point in their history. But yeah, those crystals are definitely used in void rituals. And for the Outlanders in particular, in mutating themselves or imbuing themselves with power. That is everything that we know in the game so far. Obviously, there's a few more magical items that don't really do much at the moment. There's these wands that don't really do much of anything. Oh, and then I threw this in here as well, just because the thorium, when you create with it, it has a poison resistance. Which, given that the Scarix shoot poison in Zone 2, I wonder if that's not related, a little relationship between the two of them. If you're watching this on YouTube, we stream this live on Twitch every Tuesday at 11 a.m. PST, and there will be a poll live on YouTube if you would like to vote for what we talk about next week. We also have a Discord if you want to come chat with us, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, and happy hightailing. Did I look smarter? Is just the question I want to leave this on. Like, was this a more compelling series of arguments because I had the glasses on? I just want to throw that out there one last time. Okay, bye.